All right, so today we're going to deep dive into a book that's been on my list forever, Lyle Larlamy's The Moor's Account.
Oh, cool.
It's historical fiction, but with a twist. And I think you're going to find it really captivating. I've got some excerpts here, and let me tell you, this book is a page-turner.
Historical fiction, I love when it's done well. It's like a window into another time, but it, also makes you think about the echoes of the past in our own world. I'm really curious to see what Lalamy uncovers with this one.
Well, get this. The story, it revolves around the 16th century Narváez expedition to Florida.
Okay.
But it's told from the perspective of Mustafa ibn Muhammad, a Moroccan slave.
Wow.
Not your typical conquistador tale.
No,
Right? Yeah.
not at all. That's a fascinating choice to see that period of history, but through the eyes of someone who's both an outsider and like caught in the middle of this colonial enterprise, like flipping the script on everything we think we know.
Exactly. And Lalamy doesn't shy away from Mustafa's perspective.
Hmm.
Right from the start, I mean, he tells us he's relying on his memory, basically hinting that there might be more to it than the official historical accounts.
Mm.
He even calls Cabeza de Vaca, whose own chronicle of the expedition, became famous, his rival storyteller.
Oh, wow.
How intriguing is that?
Very. Yeah, it definitely it sets the stage for a challenge to the traditional narrative. To hear a marginalized voice questioning the accepted version of events, it makes you wonder what really happened, what stories haven't been told.
Right. And it's not just about historical accuracy. It's about power dynamics,
Yeah.
about the clash of cultures. Mustafa is constantly observing the Spanish, like their motivations, their behavior toward the indigenous people, and his insights are so sharp, so unexpected.
Yeah, what's really striking to me is the level of detail Alami provides. I mean, she paints such a vivid picture of the social hierarchy within the Spanish expedition. For example, she describes how they assemble when they first land in Florida. The governor with his captains, the friars all together, then the horsemen, the men-at-arms, and finally the slaves,
Yeah.
scattered amongst their owners.
Right.
It really highlights the rigid structure of their society and where Mustafa fits within it.
And that hierarchy becomes even more stark when you see how they treat the native people. There's this scene where they capture 4 Native Americans, and Mustafa describes them in detail, naked, vulnerable, completely at the mercy of the Spanish. You can feel his empathy for them, even as he's trapped in this system himself.
Yeah, and it's crucial to remember that Mustafa, while enslaved by the Spanish, is also an outsider to their colonial ambitions. He's able to see their greed, their brutality with a clarity that someone fully invested in the conquest might not have.
Absolutely. Yeah. And remember, Mustafa's journey starts long before he even reaches Florida. His life in Azemmur, his capture, the brutal transition to life as a slave in Seville. Lamy doesn't sugarcoat any of it.
And if you think about the broader context, Mustafa's experience, I mean, it reflects the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade. Forced migration, cultural disruption, the stripping away of identity.
Yeah.
These are themes that resonate far beyond this one story.
It's heartbreaking when he talks about being reborn into an alien world with unbearable rules. Imagine having to learn a whole new set of rules, not about how to live, but about what you're not allowed to do simply because of your status.
Yeah. What I find fascinating is that even in this position of subservience, Mustafa remains incredibly observant and resourceful. He analyzes how the slave auction in Seville operates, how the auctioneer manipulates the buyers, and he even uses this knowledge to try and ensure he's sold at a higher price.
He's not just passively accepting his fate. He's trying to navigate this system that's, it's designed to dehumanize him. It's a subtle form of resistance, but it speaks volumes about his character.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, there's the expedition itself. Narváez, the ambitious leader, Dorantes, Mustafa's master, and even Cabeza de Vaca. They all come to life in the novel, but not in the heroic way, we might expect.
Right.
Lamy uses these really vivid scenes to show how the expedition is doomed from the start. The obsession with finding gold, the clashes with Native American tribes, the dwindling supplies, the growing desperation. You can almost feel the tension building as you read.
And the way she describes the environment, the scorching sun, the dense forests, the treacherous swamps, it's like nature itself is conspiring against them.
Oh, and there's this this river they come to, the Rio Oscuro, named for the black rocks at the bottom, and they have to build rafts to cross, and it's almost like a premonition, a sign that things are about to get a whole lot worse.
Yeah. Oh, it makes you wonder how much these explorers truly understood the land they were entering. Their greed for gold seems to blind them to the very real dangers and complexities of the natural world.
And those dangers become all too real as the exhibition starts to fall apart. Shipwrecks, starvation, hostile encounters with indigenous tribes. Mustafa's journey becomes one of sheer survival.
Right.
And the relationships between him, Dorantes, Castillo, and Cabeza de Vaca, well, let's just say they get really complicated.
Yeah, the power dynamics shift constantly. Alliances form and break under the immense pressure. You start to see how even deeply held beliefs and prejudices can be challenged when people are pushed to their absolute limits. And that's where things get really interesting.
It's at that breaking point when the expedition is just crumbling
Yeah.
that the novel really digs into the human cost of these grand narratives of exploration and conquest. We see it all through Mustafa's eyes, and it's just a starkly different perspective than we're used to.
You're right. I think we often forget about the individual stories, the human impact. Lalami brings that to the forefront through Mustafa's experience. And it makes you question the traditional accounts, the ones that often paint the indigenous people as either noble savages or bloodthirsty enemies.
Exactly. Instead, we see the complexity of their cultures, their ways of life, and how they respond to this invasion of their land. There's this one scene that really stuck with me. Mustafa finds himself caught in the middle of a battle between the Spanish and a Native American tribe.
Oh, wow.
He's weaponless, surrounded by chaos and violence, just fighting to stay alive. It's a far cry from the romanticized version of exploration we often get.
Yeah, it's a visceral, terrifying moment that really underscores the brutal reality of these encounters. And it's a turning point for Mustafa. As things continue to deteriorate for the expedition, he ends up separated from the Spanish and forced to adapt to life amongst the Native Americans.
And that's where things get really interesting. He has to learn their language, their customs, their ways of survival. He even develops a reputation as a healer, drawing on his own knowledge and adapting it to this new context.
I was fascinated by the scenes where he uses his healing practices. For instance, there's one where he performs cupping on a tribal leader, blending his understanding of medicine with the local traditions.
Yeah.
It speaks to the adaptability of human knowledge, and how we can find common ground even across vast cultural divides.
It's not just one-sided, though. I mean, Mustafa is learning from the Native Americans as well, gaining new perspectives on healing nature and community.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful example of cultural exchange, even in the midst of such upheaval.
Yeah.
And amidst all this hardship, he finds love with a Native American woman named Oyomasot. Talk about a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
Their relationship is so beautifully portrayed, isn't it? It's not without its challenges. There's initial skepticism from Oyomasad, and the difficulties of bridging their cultural backgrounds are very real, but ultimately it represents a profound connection that transcends the conflicts of the time.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope and love can flourish in the most unexpected places. But of course, this is still a story set against the backdrop of colonialism, and the threat of the Spanish looms large.
Right. Towards the end of the novel, the arrival of other Spaniards casts a shadow over Mustafa's newfound life and love. It leaves you wondering, will he be able to truly escape captivity? Will his freedom be short-lived?
Lalme doesn't give us easy answers. She leaves us on a cliffhanger, pondering Mustafa's fate and what will become of him and Oryomasa. It's a reminder that history isn't a neat and tidy story. You know, it's messy, complex, and full of unanswered questions.
That ending, it really stayed with me. You know, you're on this emotional roller coaster with Mustafa, and then Lalami just cuts it off right when the stakes are at their highest. I mean, I have to know what happens next.
I know, right? It's such a powerful way to end the story, though, because it forces you to sit with that uncertainty, to imagine the possibilities. It's almost like she's inviting us to become part of the storytelling process.
And it makes you think about how history itself is often full of those unanswered questions, those moments where the the record is incomplete or the perspectives are limited.
Exactly. And that's where the power of historical fiction comes in. It can fill in those gaps, not with definitive answers, but with imaginative possibilities that make us rethink what we thought we knew.
Speaking of rethinking what we know, I was fascinated by how Lalami handles the character of Cabeza de Vaca. He's such an enigma throughout the novel. He starts out as this staunch supporter of Narváez's disastrous leadership, but then he undergoes this incredible transformation as he's forced to adapt to life amongst the Native Americans.
His journey is one of the most compelling aspects of the book. He goes from being a symbol of Spanish authority and colonialism to someone who starts to question the very foundations of that system. And yet he's the one who ultimately writes the official account of the expedition, the one that becomes part of the historical record.
It's like Lalami is subtly pointing out how history is often written by the victors,
Yeah.
by those in power. And she's giving us a glimpse of what might have been lost or silenced in that process.
It makes you wonder what Mustafa's version of the official account would have looked like, doesn't it? What stories would he have chosen to tell? What perspectives would he have highlighted?
Right. And the fact that Mustafa's story is essentially contained within Cabeza de Vaca's book, adds this whole other layer of metafiction that I just love. It's like Lalami is saying, look, even within the dominant narrative, there are these other stories waiting to be heard.
It's brilliant, and it makes you want to dig deeper to seek out those marginalized voices, to uncover the hidden histories that challenge the traditional narratives.
Okay, so we've talked about the characters, the themes, the historical context. But I have to say, one of the things that really captivated me was Lalami's writing itself. Her prose is so lyrical, so evocative. It's like reading poetry, even when she's describing these brutal realities.
She has this incredible ability to transport you to another time and place. You can practically feel the heat of the Florida sun on your skin, smell the salt air of the coast, taste the strange and unfamiliar foods that Mustafa encounters.
There's this one passage where she describes the way sunlight filters through the leaves of a palm tree, creating these dancing patterns of light and shadow on the forest floor. It's such a simple description, but it's so vivid, so mesmerizing.
She uses those sensory details to create a truly immersive experience for the reader. You're not just observing the story, you're living it alongside Mustafa.
It's a book that stays with you, long after you finish reading it. It makes you think, it makes you feel, and it definitely makes you want to learn more about this period of history and the people who lived through it.
Well, I think we've given our listener a pretty good taste of what the Moor's account has to offer. If you're looking for a historical novel that will challenge your assumptions, expand your understanding of the past and leave you utterly captivated, I highly recommend adding this one to your reading list.
I second that.
Yeah.
And to our listener, happy reading. I have a feeling you're going to love this journey as much as we did. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those pages turning.